Good evening, good evening, good evening. Y'all, I am so excited for this episode of our podcast. We have two dynamic ladies who I like to call the dynamic duo. These are the ladies of PoliticaCoach, LLC. We have LaDawn Blackett Jones with us and Myesha Good. And I was going to read their bios, but you know what? I can't do them justice. So what I think I will do is have them briefly introduce themselves, and then we'll move into our topic today, which is turning passion into purpose. And then how do you turn your purpose into something that's going to pay your bills? All right. And these ladies know all about that because they are business owners, they are wives, they are mothers, and they're doing it all. So I'll start with you, LaDawn. If you would please introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having us. Really excited to be here. My name is LaDawn Blackett Jones, and I am a married mother of two. I have a middle schooler and a high schooler. I'm also the owner of LBJ Law Group, which is a trademark law firm here in Atlanta. And I am partner in PoliticaCoach with my great partner, Myesha, where we help to train and coach candidates for public office and helping them to run and be better candidates. I am from Atlanta. I graduated from Tennessee State University for undergrad and Tulane Law School, and immediately left law school and became a prosecutor for the Fulton County DA's office, where I moved up pretty quickly and became a chief senior prosecutor. While there, I saw some things that really moved me about our communities and what was happening in our communities. And I decided that I really would like to lead from a different point of view. So I left the DA's office to open my practice and at the same time run for a political office, which I did in 2012. And I ran as state representative for District 62 in Georgia, which includes East Point, College Park, Douglas County, South Fulton, and Atlanta. I won. I was the youngest candidate, the only woman, as well as the most novice compared to my opponents who had a lot of political ties in the community. And my partner, Myesha, was my campaign manager. And so from there, I was able to serve for 2 terms in the General Assembly. And I was very honored to do so and had a lot of good experiences there. One of the things that I did while serving was help to create one of the newer cities in Georgia, the city of South Fulton. And when I left the legislature, I did take some time to become their first city solicitor. So I've spent a lot of time with the city of South Fulton in a number of capacities. But in addition to that, I've been honored to work on a number of different campaigns. Most notably, I was the Georgia State Director for Bernie Sanders. And with Myesha, we have helped to coach dozens and dozens of candidates. And so PoliticaCoach, as you can see, we have a number of different jobs, is our passion, right? Myesha and I have continued to help candidates run for office for years before joining up to make PoliticaCoach. Oftentimes we did it in our capacities in different organizations, sometimes for free, sometimes paid. And so we decided in 2017 to turn our passion into a paycheck and monetize both helping to get quality candidates to run for office while also making it as a side job to some of the other things that we do. And we are very selective in who we choose because we only want candidates that really can win. We want people who are really passionate as Myesha and I are about service. And it makes it easy for us to make PoliticaCoach our passion project because we get to be selective and ensure that other people with that same level of passion work. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm really excited to be here and answer all of your questions.
Thank you so much, LaDawn. When I tell you that that's part of the reason we're so excited, first of all, you heard the resume, which is phenomenal, but you could also just reach out and touch her passion, right? You could hear it even in every word that she spoke. And like she mentioned, her good partner and trusted friend is here, Myesha Good, her partner in PoliticaCoach. And so I'll ask Myesha to introduce herself to the audience, please.
Thank you, Ebony. So I'm Myesha Good. As LaDawn stated, she and I are political entrepreneurs, right? So we began this journey together. It was so funny how we met because I met her father first. And then years later, he introduced me to her. He said, my daughter is ready to run for office. She will be the best candidate. It was no questions. I said, tell me what I need to do. And from that day on, we just became family. Our families are close. We do we're very sincere and honest with each other, which I think is good for a relationship when you're dealing with business. And we understand each of our strengths as well. But me, I started in 2000. Morris Brown College is where I went to college at. But it's also where I got my political start at. So when I first got to Morris Brown, I didn't want anything to do with politics. It was not even on my radar. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a psychiatrist. And so my passion actually found me, and I recognized the gift, and I started moving in the gift. And from that point on, God has been just opening so many doors for me that I can't even explain. And remind you, I didn't come from a political family. We never talked about politics. However, I do say when you have a passion, or I call it a gift, God will lead the way, but you got to stay in tune with him. So from that point on, in year 2000, I started working on a political campaign, didn't know what I was doing. It was a presidential campaign, and we lost that race. And me, I'm so competitive. I'm like, oh no, how can we lose this race? We've been on this race 6 months. No way. I told myself I was done, but actually I wasn't. I was just getting my start. So from there, I started working in local government. I still work in local government, City of Atlanta. I've been there since 2001. And I started learning government on every single level. Not only working as a employee of government, but also as a consultant who helps people run for office. So from that point on, I started working on city council races throughout the metro, commission races, state and federal races, just to understand exactly what is this I'm getting myself into. And I started training, getting involved in several trainings to understand the craft. From that point on, I started becoming more involved in my community. I started becoming very involved in voting rights. Now I serve as the chair of the Board of Elections. I'm also in my second term as 13th Congressional District Chair for the Democratic Party of Georgia. And so with that, I have been able to work on so many federal races, from Obama to Clinton, and so many others over time because of this gift that was brought to me, right? So from that point on, from understanding these races, so many doors that have been open. And from that point on, I just continue to get trained. I continue to learn the craft. And where I live now, we were able to flip our county for the first time ever. This county is over 100 years old, and we flipped this county in 2016. And from that, we put viable candidates in place, and every candidate won. So and saying that, this to me is just something I just love to do. And over the years, I have been strengthened to elevate and to teach others the craft and get them into office. And a lot of times people ask me, why aren't you running for office? But for me right now, where I am, my gift and what I'm here to do is to help others at this time in my life. So that's a little bit about what I do, and then I'll share more as we move on.
So again, I say the dynamic duo, without a question, hands down. And both of you touched on something that I wanted to kind of circle back to as we're talking about moving from your passion to purpose and turning your purpose into a viable career, and something that you can actually sustain yourself with, because most of us are not independently wealthy. We got bills. And so you talked about a gift, or having the gift, right? And the gift opening doors. And so my mom used to say when we were really, really young kids, don't worry about it. Your gift is going to make room for you. If you're truly walking in your gift, it'll make room for you. So the question for a lot of people, though, is how do you know it's a gift, right? Because there are things that we might enjoy. There are things that we might enjoy tremendously. But how do we move from this is a great hobby to know that this is my gift? This is my gift and I know it. How do you know that? What will tell you that?
So for me personally, as I said, this was presented to me. Someone came up to me, and it was actually a minister who said, what do you do? What do you want to do? I was just in undergraduate school. I was a sophomore. And he started talking to me, and he used his gift to explain that I should be moving in another direction, right? At first I was like, oh no, that's not for me.
Told
No.
you that, just basically said you should be moving in another direction. Oh, wow. Okay.
Another direction. And he said you should be operating in a political atmosphere. And I'm like, really? I said, I don't know anything about politics, not a passion, whatever. So I thought about it. I went home, I started writing down some short-term goals, and I started really learning that craft. So for me, it was something that was asked of me, told of me. It was nothing that I was passionate in doing. So I started writing down some of my long and short-term goals. I started getting trained on it. And as I started getting trained, it became so easy for me. I started grasping the information fairly quickly. And as I mentioned before, so many doors just open. Like, it's nothing I did. So I feel like when you're walking in your gift or your passion, it comes easy, even though you would have some challenges, but it comes so easy for you, and your name will be mentioned in places that you don't even know. Like, for instance, LaDawn and I don't have to seek for candidates. People are coming to us. It's nothing that we're doing. You know, they've watched our work over the years. They know we can help them win. And we just basically just wait for the calls to come in. So that's how I know that this is my passion, because I can come on to a race I think LaDawn came on your race, last 5 months of her race. And we sat down, looked at the plan, and we moved forward. And we won that race, being the only woman, 4 other men, took it into a runoff, and we won. Because it was truly, for me, it was just God at that point. So you have to understand exactly why you're here. You have to understand your purpose. You have to understand, what are you here to do until you are fully exhausted of everything. And that's what I had to sit down and realize, like, okay, maybe this is not a bad thing. Especially when I started realizing that, hey, this is coming to me like a piece of cake. You know, like, for me, I'm not a mathematician, and I still could look at something today. I'm like, oh no, that's not for me. But when I sat down and started studying politics and campaigns and understanding how the government works in its totality, that's how I knew that was my gift and my passion.
Absolutely. I agree with everything Myesha said, and I will add to it. You know that it is a gift, and I will say a gift or a talent, and I'll explain what I mean by the difference between two of them. Because you get up every day and you want to do it, right? Even the parts of what you're doing that are not fun, right? So if it's an entrepreneur having to chase the money or pay the bills, that's never fun. I don't care how much you like money, that's never fun. But if what you're paying the bills for makes you get out of bed, where you enjoy it, that in and of itself, that joy is in fact a gift, because there's so many people that hate what they do on a day-to-day basis. And so whether it's a God-given gift, as in soon as you get up, you can kind of strategize what you want to do for a campaign just from a conversation, or it's a talent, which is something you've practiced again and again and again, and you've learned and you've gone to classes and got education on it. You can be as good as someone with a naturally given, God-given gift, because you're passionate about it, right? And because it makes you happy. And so, you know it is a gift or a talent if it moves you, if it makes you want to look for more.
Yeah. So somebody once said, when you're working in your gift, you don't have to find a reason. The reasons find you. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like what I think I'm hearing you ladies say, in a way, kind of put a different way, but kind of sort of, if you're going to get up and be passionate about something, and you would work towards something, even though you might be tired or exhausted. But let me ask you this, and I'm going to use a sports example. There was a lot of talk about whether, and I'm going to date myself slightly, but whether Michael Jordan was the best basketball player of all time. And if he was it based on raw talent, on gifting, or on preparation? And I would like to put that to you ladies as well, like, because I hear you say, LaDawn, that you helped establish a city, and then you went on to be the city attorney for that city. And I heard Myesha talk about how competitive she is, but then she ended up saying, oh yeah, after that, every candidate won, right? So what actually is that secret sauce, right? Is that preparation? Is that talent? Is that gifted? Like, what is it? Like, for those that are listening that say, you know what, I'm struggling. I'm trying to find my purpose. And now I think I found my purpose, but I'm just in a rut. What advice can you give?
This is very similar to advice that we actually give our candidates, right? And one of the things you have to do when you're running a campaign is have a campaign plan. And what we say every time, it's not a plan if it's not written down. Ooh. And so if you have something that moves you, that you want to do, I think Jordan probably had all of the above, right? He had natural skill, obviously, right? And he honed his talent through high school and college and going pro, right? But he also prepared, right? He probably watched videos and met with his coaches and wrote down what his goals were as he moved forward. And so if you really have something, I think the starting point, whether you have a gift or not, right, or whether it's a talent you want to grow, if you have to start by writing it down and manifesting it in some way, right? And just by putting it on paper, it helps you create a timeline. It helps you get organized. It helps you really to understand what it is that you're trying to do. So if I had to choose from the three, or in your Michael Jordan example, I would say the planning and preparation is key to actually having success.
Okay.
I totally agree. So passion opens the door, right? And so I believe that Michael Jordan had the gift, but he had to be honed and trained, right? And so that's where the trainings comes in at that we both took, and what we do to prepare our candidates today. We see the talent, we see the gift, but sometimes they don't see it. They're not confident enough. So we have honed their skills. But then after that, you have to start thinking about your purpose. So purpose is what you walk in. It's what you call to do. You love doing. It's fulfilling. It's many days that I wake up and I'm tired. But once I start working in my passion, in my purpose, I feel like just a boost of energy. It's like I'm so excited, right? No matter how I feel. But I also know your purpose sustains you no matter what. So no matter what challenges that come your way, no matter how you feel, it's easier to remember that challenges are only temporary. But as you continue to move, doors open, right? Things get knocked out the way. Candidates, they get all kinds of things targeted at them, get punched down, beaten up. Folks you thought would support you don't support you. However, you keep moving because you understand that you have a purpose. Right. You're here for a reason, right? And so that is the approach that I take, because I do understand that, because I understand my final destination. And so no matter what challenges come my way. And I think that's what Jordan had to establish. Yeah.
Understanding the final destination and that challenges are only temporary. Ladies, I'm taking notes. This is all so phenomenal. As y'all probably have picked up on by now, I love quotes, right? I just live by them. And I recall somebody saying, I don't lose, I either win or I learn. Mm-hmm. And then there was a very similar quote that says, I learn more from my losses than my successes. Mm-hmm. Right? Do you ladies agree with that? And if you do, can you share an example of when that's happened for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I've definitely. So the trial attorney right away jumps to mind. I've learned far more from the trials that I lost than I ever did from the cases that I won, right? Because all the preparation lined up and it turned out fine. But when you lose, you have to go back and Monday morning quarterback yourself and say, okay, what could I have done better here? What could I have done better there? And it allows you to kind of grow. But I think the number one thing that comes out of that loss is you didn't die. Right? So you can try something, completely bomb, totally fail. And then you get up the next day and you go on with life. And once you've been knocked down that one time and you get back up, makes you a little less scared to go into the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I agree, because the challenges we face should only change our approach, right? And not our destination. So I can tell you that even in my career with City of Atlanta, or if I'm working on a campaign, I look at wins and losses the same. And I do that because after every win, after every loss, I debrief with my team. What did we do good? What did we do bad? Because even though you won, you still can make some changes along the way. What can we do better, right? And so for me, I learn a lesson in every situation that I do, everything. Even after I get off this Zoom today, I'm gonna be like, what could I have said? I could have said something better. Because I understand the only person I'm competing with is myself. And I want to always strive to do better and improve in every situation and try to remain humble, no matter what it is, especially if you win. Because a lot of times what you see, especially with candidates that are electeds that have been in office a long time, they lose that. They lose that because they feel like, okay, now I'm in this position. I have, and power starts taking over. I never want to get to that position. I want to remain humble, and I want to make sure that I'm doing exactly what God has told me to do here, as long as I have breath. So I'd say, look at every situation as a way to improve, no matter if you win or lose. Period.
Yeah. And people will hear you saying that you worked on certain campaigns, national campaigns. LaDawn, you mentioned Bernie Sanders. Myesha, I know you've had a slew as well, but it didn't start that way, right? Like there had to be a buildup to that. And I know that sometimes, particularly our younger listeners, they used to call it the microwave generation. I don't know what it's called now. But the point being is that at some point, there has to be the plan that you talked about. It needs to be in writing, right? And you need deadlines and timelines. LaDawn, you talked about getting back up because you didn't die. But what words of encouragement would you have for somebody that's like, but I've already been waiting so long. I've already been trying so hard. It just doesn't feel like it's ever going to happen.
And that's, for me, that's life. I mean, I feel sometimes that when things are given to us, some things so quickly and so easy, you don't appreciate it. And sometimes you have to go through the fire. You have to get molded. Your character is built over time, and you appreciate your gift and your purpose even more. So I wouldn't look at it as time lost, because honestly, when you get it, it's perfect timing. Every time it's like, oh my God, this is the right timing for me. So this is your time to help you build who you are. I mean, you're out here networking, you telling people about your craft. For me, I have an accountability team that helps me keep things in perspective. So, and a lot of times, I mean, granted, I am human. So it was some times where I was like, man, when is this going to happen? Right. But it happened in perfect timing. So I do say, for me, it was not a buildup. I was in college. I was a psychology major. And then somebody said, hey, you need to switch and pivot and go political. I was able to then change my major. But however, I was still an undergrad. You're talking about 19, 20 years old, right? And from there, thankfully, I had just some solid professors at Morris Brown that I'm still friends with today, that I serve on the board with today, which is amazing, that just helped prepare me for what's to come, right? And so I started interning and understanding the state capitol. I started moving in different paths. So even though I didn't get the big win I felt, but I was still winning because I was learning, I was growing, my character was being molded. So I would say, don't give up. Get some people in your life that will motivate you, and also remind you of who you are when you don't see it, because that's going to happen sometimes. Even candidates, elected officials go through that, because we're human. And also just make sure that you have someone within that team. It doesn't have to be a lot of people. We talk about this to our candidates, but we call it the kitchen cabinet. It don't have to be a lot of people. It could be 3 to 5 people that will provide reassurance, that will remind you of your destiny, that will keep your mind focused and just keep things in perspective for you. Because if not, it's easy to fall off if you don't have that team's providing that additional you need every now and then.
Right.
I would add that, if you're looking at something and saying, oh, this is taking too long, right? it's probably because you're comparing your journey to somebody else's. And you're saying,
oh, that's a word, LaDawn, that's a word.
Exactly. And so you feel it's taking too long because you've seen someone else get to where you want to be. And it seems like they got there faster, but you don't know what their journey was, right? And many times the people who are most successful fail more often than the average person because they're not afraid to try. They were knocked down, they continue to get back up, right? And so if you let that hold you back, that is taking too long, and that comparison is going to put that extra strain on you. But speaking of other people, there's nothing new under the sun. So if you are in that space where you feel like, wow, this is taking too long. I remember when I applied to go to law school, and I was taking the LSAT, and I found out that they have whole classes that teach you how to take the LSAT. And apparently they had that for the SATs and the PSATs and all this all along. I didn't know that coming out of school, right? And when I took one of these classes, I was like, oh, there's cheat codes and secrets and everything else that's that had I not paid for this $1,500 class, I would not have known. And so very similar to that, there are cheat codes and ingredients and recipes for every facet in life. So if you don't feel like you're moving along fast enough, then that's when you hire a coach, like people hire a PoliticaCoach. So you can hire a business coach, you can hire a personal coach, a life coach, you can take additional classes, find a mentor, right? So if you feel like you've really given it your all, that you're not comparing yourself to someone else, but maybe it's time to get help. And that is quite all right. It's an investment into whatever your goals are.
I think that's phenomenal advice. I know, Myesha, you mentioned being an intern. And I have heard some people saying, well, I'm not doing anything for free, and the way that it was presented to me was it's an investment in you, right? And the experience is the pay. The networking is the pay. And just knowing that you could probably reach back to some people that you would meet along the way, for what LaDawn was saying about the coaching and all of that, because I guess it could be formal or informal coaching. But you ladies are dynamic business-wise. We know that. In your careers, we know that. But you also have families. And I'm going to exhale on that. We were multitasking as we were getting on the call today, as a matter of fact. But there seems to be a way that you're managing it all, right? Having a family hasn't been sort of like, oh, I have a family. It's like, yeah, and I have a family. I have all these dynamic things I do professionally, and I have a family. But for a lot of people, it's, oh, and I have a family. It's exhausting. It is the thing that should bring the most joy, but brings a lot of times the most challenge. And sometimes it's the thing that makes people say, you know what? This passion I thought I had for this thing I wanted to do, there's nothing left to do it because I got a family. So how do you ladies balance all that you're doing with PoliticaCoach and with your other endeavors, such that you're able to find a space and time to work with your purpose, work in your gift, and turn your passion into a career?
So for me, I have built in me times, and I have to travel because if I don't travel, I'm home working or in the city working. So I have to leave. So honestly, I just got back from Jamaica yesterday, and just was there just to woosah a little bit. I don't have kids, but I am a caretaker. And we're trying to juggle that along with work. I find that for me, traveling is my solace. I have to travel. I have to be with water, honestly. It's something about water. So that is how I manage it all, honestly. And just staying organized and writing down. I mean, I have a notebook here in front of me. I write down everything and staying on task, because procrastination for me can't happen. I believe in staying on task, having that me time that you need. And also my family recognizes it. They understand when, okay, Myesha needs her moment, and they grant it, they really respect it. So I do say, especially it's harder for women, it seems, that because we juggle so much that we don't know how to say, hey, enough is enough, but you got to find time for yourself, or you're going to find yourself sick, or something's going to happen to you, and you don't want that to happen. So you got to take time for yourself.
Like Myesha, I schedule plenty of me time, traveling, time with family. As a mom, I look at that school schedule as soon as it comes out, and every fall break, every spring break, I put it on the calendar and I take off whatever I'm doing and plan a trip for that time, because I know I can spend time with the kids. And if you do it far enough in advance, you get it all in. When I was first running for office, someone who I thought was going to support me in a big way, when I went to tell them that I was running, my children at the time, I believe, were 2 and 4. And he said, well, listen, I think you would be great, but, kids need their moms. Right. And if you're in office, how are you going to do that? Now, at the time, I was somewhat hurt. In retrospect, he was right and wrong at the same time, right? Because children do need their mothers and their fathers. And, luckily at that time I had a huge support system to really help me. And I've now shifted that attention because I know children need their mothers. But when he first said that, I was like, you know what? You're right. Went on Craigslist, got me a used double stroller. And the next several weekends where I was spending knocking on doors to meet people and asking people for their vote, my 2 little ones are right there with me. Every church we went to, those 2 little ones and my husband were right there with me, right? And so all that to say, you can have it all, but not all at the same time. But every once in a while, when you can put it all together, right? I think my children have learned a lot by being there with me in courtrooms and other places to see what mommy does. And then, of course, it's that support system. And so one of the things we always tell our candidates, when we do their first assessment is, what does your family say? Right? What is your spouse or your parents, or the people you live with? How do they truly feel about this endeavor? Because without their support, you really probably can't move forward.
Right. Wow. That's interesting. Children need their moms. Yeah, I guess so, but context is important, right? Context is important. So we're going to wrap this up. I appreciate you ladies so much, but I wanted to just end with one final question. You've done so much, more than a lot of people ever dream about doing. But what's next for you ladies? Because one thing I know, just in our interactions, is that you ladies move with intention and you plan. So to the extent that you can share, I think the audience would love to know what great things you have coming up.
I'm really excited. In January, I'm taking a nice sabbatical. I've worked really hard. I've always worked 2 to 3 jobs. So we'll continue PoliticaCoach, but my main 9 to 5, right, and running my law practice, I'm just going to take a little bit of time off. And the only thing that I am planning for that time off is not to plan. I
love it. Planning not to plan. Did y'all hear that? Planning not to plan. I love it.
Which takes a lot from me because, as you mentioned, I'm normally a planner and I have things mapped out months and years in advance. And I am excited about, for this first time, because I have met so many of my goals, just seeing what the freedom of creativity does. Enjoying being a mom when that truly is my first priority. It's always my first priority in my head and my heart, but scheduling sometimes doesn't always want to be first priority. And so knowing that the only things I have to do is get the kids to school in the morning and be there to pick them up in the afternoon, and all that time in between, it's all me.
That'll be fantastic, I'm sure.
It's going to be great. And what I'm hoping will come out of it is going to be a whole extra level of creativity where I can truly understand, because it's very difficult to plan those next steps when you're on the hamster wheel. So for me, as a planner, I'm just going to take a break. That's what's next for me, so that the next big thing comes. Now, last time I did this, I didn't take a full sabbatical, but I did pull back a lot when I left the legislature. And that's when PoliticaCoach was born. And that's what usually happens when I stop. I start something else.
So when you stop, something amazing is coming next for sure. Myesha?
Well, for me, we're going into the winter months soon. We just got into fall. So usually in the winter months, I sort of hibernate, and I still plan. I'm going to be planning about what's going to happen for next year. So, but I do take time to rest. I literally take off 1 month. It's typically the month of December, where I do nothing but rest and spend and love on me. and also determine what's next. I can tell you the big picture of it all is that I do want to eventually run for office. I'm not sure when that time is, but that is something I'm preparing for. And like my mom always say, you have to stay ready. So I'm staying ready because at any time, what we've seen in politics is that candidates can wake up today and say, hey, I resign, or I don't want to be in this anymore.
Right.
Things that happen. So my goal is to continue to stay ready, continue to love on me and my family, and just reassess. You have to reassess sometimes where you are, and to see if there's some things you need to take off your plate, because women, we tend to pile it up, right? And I need to make sure that whatever that I have on my plate today makes sense as I move forward. I don't want to be overloaded.
Well, ladies, also known as the dynamic duo, thank you so very much for joining us on this episode of our podcast. I think if I could just hit a few highlights: always know your purpose. You'll know when it's your gift. It'll make room for you. If you are stuck or feeling stuck, you might want to get a coach or a mentor. And then always make sure that you understand that whatever happened when you fell down, you didn't die. And so I want you all to just share your website, if you don't mind, just for some folks that might be listening who might want a little bit more advice. Maybe they're thinking of running for office. I know you're very selective, but perhaps, just perhaps, maybe somebody listening now could be the next big thing for PoliticaCoach. What's your website?
You can reach us at PoliticaCoach.com, and we have plenty of information at PoliticaCoach.com about our programs. And we encourage people to go, even if you're not certain if you want to run for office, look at our coaching programs, because the candidates we like to work with are a year out from running, or maybe they don't know what to run for yet, so that they can get an opportunity to really build up to their campaign. And whether you know if we're going to work with you or not, please reach out to us. We will set up a call and we will chat with you and understand your goals and just kind of support you and lift you, because for us, as our passion, service is so important. And so anybody who is truly honest about putting themselves up for service, we want to support in some way or fashion.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's our time, ladies. Thank you so, so much. We'll have to have you back after sabbatical to figure out what the next big thing is. And thank you all for listening. Until next time, this is She's Got GAWL, your new favorite podcast.